Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Today I have another themed episode for you, and for those of you who regularly watch Morning Movie News, you know that I love when I can do that. It's kind of like playing a game, and I found not only 3 stories that connect, but even a viewer question. Yahtzee! I've got the whole shebang. Alright, so today's theme, what is it? It's moving on up as we see some of our favorite stars get to the next level of their careers, or potentially get to the next level of their careers. At least they've got a shot. So we're going to start off today with Channing Tatum, who is very much coming into his own as a producer. Now, Magic Mike XXL is starting to get some momentum. We're seeing some casting notices. Amber Heard, Johnny Depp's significant other, has just landed, I believe, the lead female role in the film. Andy McDowell has signed on. Jada Pinkett Smith is circling. Matt Bomer, Joe Manganiello definitely returning. Zac Efron, will he join? Chris Pratt, will he be in this one even though he missed the first? A lot of different stories. But this latest one focuses on Tatum, and I think it's a very fun idea and another example of how he's just embracing this side of himself and really turning it into an asset. I guess pun intended. So what is this? Well, I was looking around for videos just to see what's going on the internet with movies, because September is such a slow month. So I found myself over on the Warner Brothers YouTube channel, and there was, what do you know, a video from Channing Tatum announcing some Magic Mike XXL contest. And I was like, what's this? So I watched it, and I'm going to put a link down below in the video description to this announcement, because Channing Tatum, I think, is very personal in the announcement. I think it continues to be one of his biggest assets, besides what that's a pun for, as an actor, that he just, I think, is extremely likable and relatable. And it's that down-to-earth quality that makes not only women like him, but men. I think he's used it to great effect in his comedic work in the 21 Jump Street franchise. So he announced that there's this contest. So what is the contest? Well, he wants you to say or prove, not just say, but prove via a video or a photo or some kind of composition as to why you are a Magic Mike fan and why you're the biggest Magic Mike fan. And he wants you to share that on social media. And it's a very clever way to promote the film, obviously. Everyone's going to be uploading these testimonials to Magic Mike and why they love it so much. But Channing Tatum is doing the right thing, and while he's asking you to promote his movie for free, he has a pretty nice carrot in the mix. So, what is the reward if you're to win this contest? By the way, you have to enter by September 29th. If right now you're watching this and going, I want to enter, and you might now say that once you hear what the prize is. So the prize is, if they pick your video, and they'll probably pick a couple of entries, video or photo again, you will get to go visit the set of Magic Mike XXL. You'll get to talk to Channing Tatum, meet members of the cast, but then it gets even better. You will be an extra in the film, and not just any extra, but you will get to be in the audience for one of the strip shows that they'll be doing in the film. Channing Tatum calls them dances. I guess that's the way strippers like to look at them, to try and make it seem like it's still an art. And this is very much, a mainstream film. But he said these dances will be even crazier than the first movie. And of course, this is going to be at the stripper convention, so they'll need a pretty big audience, which might be another reason to hold this contest, and why you might be able to have a good shot at winning, because if they have to fill a convention-sized crowd, they're going to need quite a few extras. So I think it's a really smart way to go. And also, if you have Magic Mike fans in the audience for these dances, you know you're going to get a great reaction, because you get to see Channing Tatum and company strip and dance live. So great idea, very smart, and I just wanted to put that out there in case you were interested in entering, because I don't think that this contest is getting a lot of attention. And then also just to talk about Magic Mike and also Channing Tatum and how he's evolving as a producer and a star and an actor who embraces the negative things that maybe were said about him at the beginning of his career, about being a pretty boy, a lot of glamour shots that people are like, where are these photos coming from? He's very much a male model and a stripper in real life before he became a successful actor. And then also the dumb jock persona. And all those things he's turned into a huge plus. So I love watching the evolution of Channing Tatum, and I just think this is the latest bit of evidence of that. All right, so that's the first story. The second story is about Damien Chazelle. Now, Damien Chazelle is the writer-director of Whiplash, which I recently reviewed, and I said might be one of the best movies I've ever seen. He's an extraordinarily talented filmmaker. But sometimes extraordinary talented filmmakers don't really go anywhere. It's very hard to get momentum and keep that momentum in Hollywood. It's a constant struggle. And, you know, just because you have one great day or one great day of headlines or reviews, it doesn't mean it's going to necessarily lead to a next one. You always have to hustle for your next project. And so I'm very happy to say that Damien Chazelle is hustling, or his management team is hustling, and he has some very impressive projects in the works. Now, there's La La Land, which I'm sure some of you have heard of already because he's already signed that deal a while back, and that's a musical with Miles Teller as like a jazz pianist, and then Emma Watson from the Harry Potter films is this singer in Los Angeles, and they fall in love, and it's a musical. And I think that combo of Miles Teller and Emma Watson is very fan-friendly, at least Emma Watson half. We'll see if Miles Teller cannot shoot himself in the foot. One of you pointed out to me, I think it was Tomwood 555, that a BTT viewer, that he had given an interview in W Magazine saying that he didn't like the the Divergent films, and that he thought that it was, you know, killed a little piece of his soul, and he felt dead inside when he was making Divergent, and he only took it for the money, or it was a business decision. And then, true enough, after Tomwood 555 showed me this article or mentioned it, I saw covered on one of the movie news sites that I check in with regularly that Miles Teller had tweeted an apology for that comment, or not even really an apology, basically saying that he was misquoted, and he very much loves being in Divergent, and he loves all Peter's princesses. Peter is his character, and I guess Peter's princesses are the fans of that character, and that he's never made a business decision when it comes to his career. It's always about the craft. I'm paraphrasing because, of course, that's not 120 characters. But, you know, Miles Teller, very difficult person. I've met him at Comic-Con in 2013 for Divergent, actually, and he's difficult. Someone actually said that they thought they had some Shia LaBeouf vibes from him, and I think that's very accurate. And we have all, of course, remember how Shia LaBeouf not only did implode, but is still kind of imploding. So we'll see if Miles Teller cannot implode before La La Land comes out, or even before Whiplash has a successful Oscar campaign. Miles Teller has got to be crazy to have Whiplash in the mix and be making comments like this. But J.K. Simmons, I think, is probably who they're really going to push forward that movie anyway, because he has the best shot at actually winning for Best Supporting. But anyway, back to Damien Chazelle. He's in the news because he's going to direct the new Neil Armstrong bio, and I think that's a great choice, because just like the character in Whiplash, who pushed himself as a jazz drummer, you have Neil Armstrong, who pushed himself as a pilot, all the way to the point that he became the first astronaut, one of the first astronauts and the very first man to set foot on the moon. So it's a great project, and I think Damien Chazelle is a great choice for it, because Whiplash really is exemplary for its editing, cinematography, just the whole language of the movie, and I think that's really important when doing a movie like Neil Armstrong. I'm hoping it turns out to be something like Rush, another very well-constructed film, another one of my favorite films of all time, from Ron Howard, just last year, of course, with Chris Hemsworth, and I can't believe Daniel Bruhl. Yes, Daniel Bruhl. See, Daniel Bruhl had so much momentum, but he hasn't kept it going, and now I can't even totally remember his name right off at the drop of a hat. I have to search for it. So that just goes to show you have to keep your momentum going. But Rush was a really neat little film. I felt it deserved to do better at the box office, and it deserved to do better at the awards circuit, but it didn't. But maybe this Neil Armstrong pick can do that. And I think it's going to be a period piece, obviously, for the 1960s. And I think Damien Chazelle is just absolutely a perfect choice. The only thing that concerns me is he's not writing it. I don't know why. He wrote Whiplash, did quite a good job. Instead, they've brought in the screenwriter who wrote The Fifth Estate. Why anybody, it continues to amaze me why people can get work after they've delivered such poor work in the past that hasn't even delivered box office wise. Forget what you might think of it just from a critical standpoint. But this guy, his name, I have it down here, Josh Singer. Josh Singer has lived to write again, and he's going to be writing this adaptation of a bio written by James Hansen called The First Man, A Life of Neil A. Armstrong. So if you're the type who likes to read a book before the movie comes out, you might want to go and pick that up. So Damien Chazelle, definitely a talent to watch, and I think he deserves to be a talent to watch. Extremely talented individual. And see Whiplash, and you'll understand why I'm so excited about him. Now, who's the third person on their way up? Well, that's Natalie Dormer. So many of us enjoy Natalie Dormer. She's quite good on Game of Thrones as Marjorie Tyrell, always the bridesmaid or bride-to-be, Never the bride, but she really dodges a bullet each time, I must say. But great actress, very likable, and I think is very good at chewing scenery, just enough to stand out. An unusual talent for actresses. You usually only see that with male actors, but she's very, very good. She's also, of course, going to be Cressida in the upcoming Hunger Games Mockingjay films Part 1 and 2. But now she has her first lead role. Screen Gems has signed her on to a film called Patient Zero, and she's basically going to be doing the Mila Jovovich role in Resident Evil. She's going to be the hot chick who can fight and is humanity's last hope. You know, seen it, done it, and the movie doesn't sound so great, but at least Natalie Dormer has moved up to lead role. Even with all the work she's been doing on Game of Thrones, and she's also, I believe, Irene Adler on Elementary, the American version of Sherlock. You know, it's unfortunate that she always is still getting such tiny little roles. If you go and look at her resume, even in Rush, she's just the nurse, the blonde, you know, and the counselor. She just hasn't been able to get, I think, the roles that are worthy of her talent. But now, at least she can show off herself in a lead role. And this is a genre movie, and she has a big genre fan base, so I think it's some sense to put her here. And maybe it'll be more, maybe it will be as successful as Resident Evil. Maybe it will be an underworld. We'll see. So what's the setup? It's called Patient Zero, and a virus takes over the Earth. And anybody who's turned, they're not using the word zombie, but they become violent predators. And they say it's like rabies. So they're like hyper zombies again. But Natalie Dormer, I believe her character, there is a character, maybe she just follows this guy around, who knows, but there's some character who is a survivor and turns out to be unnaturally gifted, and you know, again, humanity's best hope to save the world, and it's this gifted human's job to hunt down Patient Zero and possibly a cure. So it feels very Underworld and Resident Evil, and Natalie Dormer, I think, is a good fit with Mila Jovovich and Kate Beckinsale. So we'll see how this turns out, but I'm curious, is this something that sounds like you would want to watch? Are you a fan of Natalie Dormer, and do you think she can handle a lead role? All right, so viewer question. Is the viewer question truly a fit with today's lineup, today's theme? Yes, it is. This comes from Adam Thomas. And Adam says, question, hi Grace. With Marvel updates coming out on a weekly, if not sooner basis, tell me about it. What do you think is the holdup? And although I have to say, in a slow month like September, those announcements are a godsend. But anyway, Adam says, what do you think is the holdup announcing the Doctor Strange casting? Right? What is taking so long? And Adam says, are they just trying to give their other franchises time to breathe? Or do you think they're really having trouble locking down a contract with their actor? And then he continues saying, I think Joaquin Phoenix would deliver a great performance, but he just doesn't strike me as the kind of actor who would like signing up for a several-picture deal. I'm still holding out hope that Andy Serkis' live-action role in Avengers Age of Ultron is a Doctor Strange cameo. P.S. Is it just me, or is James Wan the perfect writer-director for this property? Thanks, love the show, smiley face. I love your question, Adam, and I love your theories. Now, sadly, while I do agree that James Wan would have been the perfect choice, they've already given the job to Scott Derrickson, who is kind of a poor man's James Wan. And James Wan, you know, I think he would have been interested in this because he had Fast and Furious 7 that he just completed, and he is trying to move into different fare. But James Wan is also very busy producing a lot of horror films because his name has come to mean something, kind of like Wes Craven and the like, which is great for James Wan. But I think that he could have done Doctor Strange, and I would have actually advised Marvel to go with him if they wanted a great horror director. Again, take out the checkbook. What's it going to take, James Wan? Because Scott Derrickson, I feel, is extremely hit or miss. And Deliver Us From Evil didn't deliver at the box office or with critics or really in any regard. So, but anyway, that ship has sailed. But the casting, we're still waiting on that announcement. And I really do agree, as I've said before, that Joaquin Phoenix is a wonderful choice, very well regarded, a great coup for Marvel if they could sign him onto a comic book movie. But is he really a team player? And I do believe that if he did not make himself available to show up at Comic-Con 2014, I would seriously be concerned about working with him going forward. He might say he's going to come, and then he just doesn't come. I think he's really unreliable. He's also a huge loose cannon with the media. Who knows what he's going to say? So it really would be a leap of faith to work with him. But I also think it would be a leap of faith to work with Serkis. But I love your idea, and I have to say, Adam, if I were Kevin Feige, and clearly if you were Kevin Feige, I'd go for it. But maybe Marvel is mulling over their choices, and that's why they haven't made an announcement. Maybe they haven't made a decision yet either. Because one would think, oh, they're going to surprise everybody with an Avengers Age of Ultron cameo. Surprise! Andy Serkis, who we do know does have a cameo in the film, is Doctor Strange. Now, while I would love for that to happen, Doctor Strange starts shooting late 2014, early 2015. So they're not going to be able to keep that a secret. They're going to have to announce it. So why not announce it now? I do think it's partially to give Guardians of the Galaxy some breathing room. I really think that a retrospect, when we see how well that strategy worked out, they simply did not want to distract from Guardians of the Galaxy. If you were hungry for Marvel news or entertainment, you needed to go see that movie. And it worked. People did. People are still going to see that movie. So really, really impressive job on how they set it up strategically over at Marvel Studios. But now they're also focusing on Avengers Age of Ultron, obviously. Even I think I theorized to the somewhat harmful of Star Wars in their campaign. But again, Doctor Strange is going to start shooting at the end of this year, early next year, before Avengers 2 comes out. They need to make a casting announcement. Now, what could possibly be the problem with Andy Serkis? As I'm sure some of you are typing right now. Well, I would say that Andy Serkis has yet to prove himself in any way as a live-action actor. He is definitely a fantastic motion capture actor, to the point where he is actually a draw for a film. Look at how well Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is doing. Speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy, Dawn is the movie it needs to surpass to get to number 6 on the worldwide list for top-grossing movies of 2014. And it's currently $50 million behind Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And we're talking the 600 million range. So that's very exciting. And the Serkis was the star of that movie, of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. It was him. So I think that he undeniably is a star when it comes to motion capture. That is his sweet spot, and he's really made it into an entire business for himself. That's why he's even involved in Avengers Age of Ultron, because he's been working with Mark Ruffalo to deliver a better, more realistic motion capture performance. And I talked about that previously, and I think he's really done some fascinating work there. But he did say he has a cameo. But the live action work, he had a live action role in King Kong, in addition to his motion capture work as King Kong, and a couple of other small roles, and it never has worked. I think that he is not a draw as a live action actor, and it would be a tremendous leap of faith, and it would take a property like Marvel, a company like Marvel, and a property like Doctor Strange to maybe make him make that leap, to have them vouch for him. And so that would be a wonderful gift, and I can think of no one more deserving than Andy Serkis. But it could not work. It would be another gamble for Marvel. And how many times do they want to roll the dice? They won't survive every time, one would imagine. I mean, the odds are just impossible. You're going to fumble eventually, right? We'll see. They haven't fumbled yet. And some of you actually countered that, but when I say that, I'm talking about overall. You might personally feel that Marvel has fumbled, but when you look at their business track record and their success and how they're dominating the comic book franchise in the whole genre, you can't deny that, and from that standpoint, they haven't faltered. So I think if I were going to do this, I would actually go with Andy Serkis. I think he's a better choice than Joaquin Phoenix. He is a great team player, and he has a big opening in his schedule, by the way. His Jungle Book doesn't come out till 2016, and he's shooting Star Wars right now, but that should wrap soon, and he would just be available perfectly to take this break and go shoot Doctor Strange. So it fits in his schedule, so Adam might be onto something. So I'm curious, do you think Andy Serkis would make a good Doctor Strange? Do you think Andy Serkis can have a career as a live action actor? Or do you think he can only do motion capture? And do you think an Andy Serkis Doctor Strange movie would be viable at the box office? And do you think he'd fit well in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? I say go for it. I'm excited about Adam's idea, and it would be a step forward in Andy Serkis' career. All right, so that's today's morning movie news. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and the viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching.